I'm gonna try to clarify some confusion around mainframe logs, and to do that I'm going to use an analogy that we all know, because we'll see that the mainframe logs are not that different from any other log source. For example, in a Windows environment that we are very familiar with, we have the capability of sending to Curator. Let me draw a Curator box here. We have the capability of sending security event logs, right? And but we also have on Windows systems EDR technologies a la Windows Defender themselves from Microsoft, Carbon Black, CrowdStrike, React, whatever, right? And these things process what is happening on the kernel, on the machine, and then they send to Curator alerts. There are actually very few, hopefully, unless you are in big trouble. And they indicate about something bad happening, right? Those security events are more frequent than just single alert, right? But there should not be too many if the system is properly configured. They complement one another. So for example, let's say that you have an alert from your EDR and you want to then perform some searches and see what else has been done by that user and this and that. Well, you get from the logs that information. The alert is what triggers that thing, right? And you can even have rules that fire on some of those events. Like the best example is the Sysmon package that exists for that. And there are also packages for EDRs as well that have their own rules and all that. Well, enough about Windows. Let's talk about the mainframe, which is the objective of this video. So in the mainframe, you see that it is exactly the very same thing. We have EDR technology, and that technology is called zAudit, which pretty much like in the Windows case is going to be sending, as the name implies, alert, indicating that something bad has been found inside the mainframe. And it's a very capable product, and there's also a package that complements that has a set of rules. Let me actually show you that package. So if we look in the App Exchange for alert, we're going to find in here C-Secure alert for RACF. Is that the one? I think it is, yeah. Yeah, we see here, it has some custom properties that extract from the information that comes in those alerts, but also notice that it has some rules, 7 rules that work in detecting some stuff, and you can look at them, and again, that's the EDR model. That's not the main focus of this video though. Also, in the mainframe, we have the capability of sending the COS and the RACF and some other, but I'm going to focus on those two, logs into Curator. And those are called real-time feed. And they are called real-time feed because in the past, and I hope that none of you is actually doing that, people used to create Unix system services that created a file that you FTP into Curator. That is definitely obsolete. That's not the way to go. So I'm just mentioning that that's what these are called, real-time feeds. And of course, there are packages for these things. Let me actually show you those. And what is tricky is the naming here. For you to find that package, you need to search for z/os. And you find this package in here. This one doesn't have rules, but has some custom properties. And I'm going to show you actually quite a few of those. I'm going to show you the before and after towards the end of this video. But also, if we search in here, not for RACF, and that's the tricky part, but what RACF stands for, which is resource, but I'm not going to put the whole thing, but if you look here for resource, you find IBM Resource Access Control Facility. That's, by the way, what RACF stands for. And this is a package that, similarly to the other one, brings 31 custom properties. And I may show you the before and after as well. Another confusing part is that what you need to acquire in order to send those logs to QRadar is typically referred as SIEM adapters for the mainframe, right? And sometimes those are called zAudit, zAudit, missing the U there, SIEM adapters. That doesn't imply that you need to buy the whole zAudit, which is a great piece, but it's not, there's a separate component for you to send just the logs into QRadar. The beauty of that approach is actually many. I mean, the parser is well written, so those events are not only parsed, but they are also normalized. Meaning that if you have a guy failing to log in on the mainframe, it's going to be falling into the authentication failures, and there's a building block for that, for detecting that. So you don't have to create rules or do anything else, because the rules that you have that work for authentication failures in Windows, for example, will also work when somebody is failing to log in into the mainframe. And in the same way as the example that I did with Windows, these really complement one another. For example, let's say that you have a password spraying, which is in RACF, if you try to log in 3 times, the account is locked. So what the bad guys try to do when they attack the mainframe is they try the same password on multiple accounts. Well, that's not going to trigger anything on alerts here, but it's going to definitely send all those individual login failures here, and then you can detect those in QRadar with excessive authentication failure type of rules, right? So again, these complement one another. They don't actually compete. The other advantage of this is that the UBA also recognize mainframe users. So you have all those rules in UBA working for you when you send those logs into QRadar. In my QRadar system, I have log sources for both. So I'm going to be putting a filter here if the log source is equal any of, and I'm going to put RACF, that's one, and COS is the other, and I add this filter. Then I'm ready to look only for those logs. Let me actually replace some logs from the mainframe here. We see those logs coming in here. Most of them are COS, but there's one that I don't know if you see it, but there's a RACF there as well. Now, let's actually pause this and take a look at any one of those. If we look at this one, notice that in the custom properties that exist by default, you don't find custom properties like, for example, key label or cipher, or they are not here. It's a good set, but it's a very basic set. Now, when you add that package, let me actually add it, and I'm going to be pausing the video to make it shorter. I already downloaded those 2 packages, the ZOS and the Resource Access Control Facility one. I'm going to add this one first. I'm going to add that one. I'm going to pause the video to make it shorter. Here we are installing it. Notice that this is going to be adding, for example, that key label property that doesn't exist, and it's going to be updating a bunch of them. So it's important that this regex has been improved, and here it adds a few more like cipher and all that, right? Let's finish the installation. The logs have been keep being replayed here. If we look at any one entry, we should see that we have now more custom properties, like that cipher that we didn't have before. There should be key, where is that key label right there, right? So again, I hope that this helps explain the difference between zAlert and the SIEM adapters, and the benefits of both, how they complement one another, and that for everything you do, even in the case of Windows, make sure that you install the right package from the App Exchange, so the custom properties, if rules comes in it, if searches come in it, or even dashboards come in it, you can enjoy those. Sometimes there are Pulse dashboards that come with those packages, so make sure you always go back to the App Exchange when you add a new log source into Curator.